Good afternoon to everybody. I would like to present a framework for comparing costs and benefits that are related to mitigation strategies in case of conflicts with herbivores, not carnivores, herbivores. And the framework has been developed by my colleague Arndt Feuerbacher and myself. And then we applied this framework to a case study together with Bhutanese colleagues Jamyang Künsang and Kiran Subedi. This work has been done already about 5 years ago. When we submitted the conference contribution that was done. And you all know then it took 3 years until we could meet here. Yeah, what is the setting, the background? Crop raiding, mammals, wild boars, elephants, monkeys, deer, a serious problem, especially for smallholder farmers in low-income countries, where they earn their livelihoods from the crops they cultivate. This situation, their situation then is further complicated when not being allowed to hunt because of biodiversity conservation objectives, or sometimes also, as is the case in Bhutan, for religious reasons. And farmers' options then are either accepting corresponding losses or sometimes even completely abandoning farming, engaging in labor-intensive mitigation strategies, combining fencing, crop guarding, mainly also crop guarding activities that frequently happen at night time, or rely upon capital-intensive mitigation strategies, as in the example I will present a moment later, by means of modern electric fencing, for instance. So to analyze the pros and cons of the latter two strategies, we developed, as said, an analytical framework to compare all farm-relevant social costs and benefits. I'm saying farm-relevant, so I won't discuss the benefits related to the existence of the wildlife. The wildlife is there, so to say. The animals are there. The society wants to have them, and we are not evaluating now the benefits emanating from corresponding ecosystem services, but we focus on the farm-relevant costs and benefits. So we take a farmer's perspective, and we are doing that under different agroecological settings. And then apply our framework to Bhutan, a country where crop raiding animals are a major constraint for farming, and where electric fencing in the recent past has been strongly promoted and also being subsidized by the government and NGOs like WWF. Yeah, so that is a picture from Bhutan, and it shows the traditional way, or it somehow illustrates the traditional way of coping with herbivores. You see a fence made of wooden shingles, and also here on the bottom, in the middle of the picture, a small hut, a shelter that is used by farmers mainly at night time for guarding the crops, deterring wild boar that comes out of the forest and raids in the crop. So now, first of all, one should ask oneself, what is the profit farmers get when farming there? And we focus upon a collective of farmers that can work together for mitigating, for hindering the animals to take away the entire harvest, so to say. And as economists, we then speak of the contribution margin that a farmer gets. And let's take one single farmer, call it farmer I. The contribution margin which then is what they earn from the crop minus the fixed costs that are to be borne by the farm, is the share of the farmer she gets from the overall crop production in the fenced or guarded area, times the price for the different crops, times the yield weight of the different crops, the area-related yield. That itself is dependent, that's within the brackets, on the farm inputs we take as given here, as fixed, like cost for seeds, cost for fertilizer, whatever, labor needed for cultivation practices, and so on. It is also dependent, that is this L of G, on the effort, on the labor effort spent for guarding, and there is a subscript K that means that this labor effort is relevant at different times of the day. We distinguished later in our survey labor at night time and at daytime. And the yields are dependent, what I will neglect in the following, but it's here just mentioned, also on the area available for wildlife surrounding the considered farmland. Then we need to deduct, because that's a special focus we have on that, the cost of this farmer that comes from guarding efforts at different parts of different times of the day, either at night or during day. That is this LKG. That is valued by the opportunity cost of the labor. The opportunity cost of the labor, that what could be alternatively earned at this time spent, or that has to be paid if somebody is really paid for this kind of work. And beta, the Greek letter again, is the share the farmer has to contribute within the collective. We can convert this contribution margin, that is a yearly value, an annual rent, so to say, into one single value when we assume that farming goes on for a very long time, just by dividing it by an interest rate, a discount rate, then we get a net present value. I will say a bit more about the discount rate and its importance a moment later. Yeah, what is the alternative? Well, that's another picture taken from Bhutan. It's in the district of Wangdi, Photrang. Yeah, that shows a nice modern electric fence with 7 lines, 7 wires here. And what is then the corresponding contribution margin of such a mitigation strategy? Yeah, I don't want to repeat everything. I'm just focusing on what comes into addition. And first of all, you see that now the yields, the crop yields, also depend on how well the fence is maintained, on the material costs for fence maintenance that have to be included into the bracket. That has got for sure an impact on the overall yields for the different crops. We have also costs related to guarding. Still, there are some costs related to guarding activities. But then, in addition, we have further costs, and gamma I here is farmers' share in these costs. For the fence maintenance and for the fence for the work and for the material cost. And perhaps there's also some additional farmland that may be reclaimed. We can also convert that into a net present value that now has also to include the upfront investment cost of the fence that we have to deduct, that is this ICF. Now, when bringing both parts together, then the farmer's condition for engaging in electric fencing instead of traditional gardening is that the gardening NPV is less than the NPV resulting from the fencing strategy. Or we could also say that the difference in the contribution margins must be greater than the annualized upfront investment cost, than the interest that could be earned alternatively when not investing into the fence, but making use of the capital in a different way. Yeah, and in other words, we deal with the annual benefits from avoided crop damages, plus the annual benefits from net labor savings, plus perhaps additional land rent from farmland that previously to the project couldn't be used, and this must be greater than the annualized material cost of fencing. Now just let me show the results for the Bhutanese context. There we neglected the additional land rent because there the evidence was not quite clear. We took a sample of 66 fencing projects in 2017 that have been randomly selected all over Bhutan. And just to present the main items of my condition there, what about the benefits from avoided crop damages? They turned out to be not that important according to the reported reductions in yield losses by the farmers, not that important as perhaps expected. So also the guarding activities had been rather effective, one could expect. But the time savings in guarding effort, guarding time, that was a very important aspect. We valued the corresponding time savings by means of the local wage rates in US that we converted into US dollar per labor day. Yeah? First of all, the time was reduced by about 70%, and second, this turned out to give the highest monetary value of the scheme. Yeah? Then we calculated the corresponding costs according to the condition. We used a discount rate of 20%, which appears to be relatively high, but for smallholders might be even higher, and assumed that the maintenance is about 10% of the overall investment cost. And there is a summary of the results. When we did it for different ecological settings. So the animals here stand for different ecological settings. Elephant is in the south of Bhutan, wild boar in other parts of the country. On average, the fencing schemes provided $155 from those rough estimates per household. And mainly that comes from the value of the labor savings. So concluding, we can say that when assessing profitability of such mitigation strategies, one has to relate to each other a clearly defined reference situation to which a strategy is to be compared, initial investment and maintenance cost, farmers' time preference that is reflected in an adequate discount rate, the opportunity costs of the capital invested, the value of potentially avoided crop losses, the value of reclaimed farmland, and labor needs for the two strategies to be compared, and possibly also during different seasons and especially during different times of the day. So since I run out of time, I will skip my last picture, and a lot of figures, of course. In the meantime, we published the results so that if you're interested, you can take a closer look to the survey and also to the framework, and we also did some sensitivity analysis to check the robustness of the results in that case study. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. We have time for one question, if any. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. How do your findings, which may be a bit more theoretical, relate to the practical realities on the ground, especially in terms of cash availability at the household level? Because there's a one-off investment which needs to be, for which cash needs to be raised. So even if it's more profitable, how does cash constraint play into the...
That is exactly the point with the discount rate that matters. Yeah? When a lot of money is needed at the first time when building the fence, and for smallholder farmers who haven't any funds, who have difficulties to raise funds, the discount rate may be 50, 60, 70% or even higher. That is a good argument when it turns out that the scheme is profitable, that a donor engages or the government subsidizes. It makes sense from a national economics point of view then, and then the discount rate to be applied corresponds to market interest rate, and the whole thing is profitable. But liquidity is an issue, and we're looking to the literature. It is frequently neglected. So discount rate, time preference, farmers' time preference is in many studies dealing with human-wildlife conflict, fencing and so on, not accounted for. So we believe that must be introduced in such a framework.
We need external resources.
Yeah.
Two-thirds of the upfront investment from the government.
Yeah. In the specific case, there was wasn't a contribution by the government.
It's only labor from the farmers, which is not liquid.
Right, we have to wrap up, unfortunately, because of time. But I'm hoping that we have 15 minutes towards the end, so you can share off your question for now, so we can move on to the next presenter. Thank you very much, Christian.